Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
The Rock and Review is honored to have on an award-winning actor, producer, New York Times best-selling author, and a band leader, David Duchovny. David, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
You know, it's listening to your new album. I really enjoyed the songs, so many great songs on there, and some of them with your vocals, David, almost reminded me of like a cool Lou Reed kind of feel.
Oh, well, I mean, to me, that's a great compliment. I'm a huge Lou Reed fan, and I actually met him really quickly once. It's a very showbiz story, and it doesn't really go anywhere. But when you would do David Letterman back in the day, there was an elevator. The dressing rooms were on the 3rd floor, and there was an elevator that you took down to go to the stage.
Wow.
And so I left, the producer came by and said, you should head down to the stage. And I'd done it before, so I knew where the elevator was. And I walked over the elevator. I get in the elevator and the door's closing, and there's an arm, holds the elevator door, and in walks Lou Reed. And it's just me and Lou Reed on this elevator. And I was like, I'm not going to say anything because, I don't want to bother him. And he goes, "Hey, David." And I was like, oh, Lou Reed knows who I am. How fantastic. It's like, "Hey, Lou." And that was it. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, but that is so amazing because, from watching and listening to Lou, growing up, it's like he oozed cool. Wherever you saw him at, he was just amazing. But listen to your new album, Gestureland, and this is your 3rd album. And I want you to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, David, about how you recorded this between 2 different studios and how you pulled it off. I know it started before the COVID, and then you guys kept working on it afterwards.
Yeah, well, we recorded a bunch of stuff in the Catskills the winter before COVID. That was like the first recording session, a few days up there. And we had the basics down. We wanted to get I think we had 14 demos, and we were going to pick 12. So then we had the 12 that we picked, and we started to re-record the vocals in Long Island City, where we have a little studio in New York, in Queens. And then the last day that I went out before the lockdown, it was like, I didn't know it was going to be the last day. It was sometime in March. We went and we recorded some vocals. I Ubered home, thinking the world was as it was. And then we locked down, then we locked down, and then the songs had to stay where they were because obviously it's not safe to be in a recording studio expectorating lyrics,
right?
Aerosol. So that's what we had, but we had like the basic tracks, so we got to live with them for that whole lockdown for a long time, and I think in many ways we got to live with the songs and we could change them. We not change the structure, the lyrics, or the melodies, but really change, in some cases, like the production, like the feel of them. So, and I think on top of that, the writing process of this album was very much more like a band than before, where it was kind of like I'd bring songs in and then we'd kind of work on them. And here it was more like we would all just kind of work on songs together. So the same thing happened with the sonic experience of the album, where I was much more open to like different kinds of sounds for these songs and taking more chances with some of the production and making it sometimes more lush, louder, more complicated, more instruments, horns, strings, stuff like that. So I think as sad as the lockdown was, as horrible as it was kind of an advantage to be able to sit with the songs for as long as we did.
And you really notice it too, listening to the album, is that, just the complexity of the instruments. I hear a lot more layers. I certainly enjoyed your past albums as well. But to me, with this, like you mentioned, the strings, a lot of the guitar tonality, some of the things you guys added in. Also, your vocals sound especially strong on this, and with kind of the way you guys layered them.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible that they gave me more help than I know. I just kind of go in there and I sing, and they tell me I'm in tune, and I'm like, well, are you guys auto tuning at all? And they're like, no, no, no. So who knows? Who knows what they're doing? But I will say, for myself, I've been singing, for like 6 years. I never sang before that, and I've been taking lessons with a guy, same guy, for 6 years, and I think I've gotten better. I certainly got more confident, and I think better and confidence can sometimes be interchangeable. Like it doesn't matter that you're better, but you're confident and it sounds better. I think that probably shows in this. Certainly, because of collaborating more musically with the band, there's a couple songs where I think they pitched melodies in places that are difficult for me to get to, but they think I could. So I appreciate that they kind of pushed me on songs like Tessera, on the chorus of that, things like that, where I probably, if I didn't write the melody or the chords of that song. If I'd written it, I probably would have pitched it lower. But I think they have more confidence in me too as a singer, so they kind of pushed me that way.
And I think it shows in the songs, because I was going to ask you about, the writing and everything, because I knew you did a lot of it, but it does seem like it's more of a band, because all of the songs on the album seem a lot more cohesive to me, that comes from the whole band angle working together. But also there's a depth to these lyrics, David, particularly, I know from a personal standpoint and from political and coming out of, the whole pandemic. Yeah. But it seems like there's a lot of kind of healing songs in here with the lyrics you wrote.
That would be great. I think, my approach to writing lyrics of song lyrics is always, I start with a personal feeling. I start with something personal that I want to express, but I don't think it's worth expressing unless I can translate it into something that is universal, something that anybody else could adopt. So I'm not going to be writing about specific things that happened to me. I don't find that to be so interesting. I like, if you want to do that, you can write a memoir. You don't write a song. So, that's like, to me, that's when I have a lyric and I go, oh, there's a song in here. It's usually something that means something to me, but I can recognize would mean something immediately to someone else. Just like basically if you take the lyric, "The nights are harder these days."
My favorite song on here.
Right. So that's a lyric that it's a little tricky. It's kind of playing off Hard Day's Night and like a whole rock and roll tradition of like writing about the night. And yet, over the pandemic and not just pandemic, but those personally, you can like it was for everybody. The nights must have been harder these days. So I was just like, okay, I immediately recognized when that phrase came into my head, like, oh, that's a decent idea to try to create a song around.
Well, and personally, I could really relate to that song. In this past year, the nights have been harder, and also I loved the like fuzz distortion guitar in that song that was really driving. That didn't conflict with your singing either. Right.
Well, I said to Pat McCusker, who's our guitarist in the band, the references, like when I have a song, and we start talking about how we want this song to sound, like what's the feel, and I would have said at that point, I said Neil Young. I was like, I'd seen Neil Young perform, and like it seems sometimes like he's fighting his guitar, like he's struggling with it, and I said, I want that, like I want it to sound like you're in a wrestling match with your guitar. And it's like, that's what I wanted. I wanted like this failure to happen over and over and just this sound to keep, getting more and more frantic.
And that's where on it, David, too, to me, it kind of had that punk feel. It's like going, and I could totally tell that being a guitar player myself, to where he was fighting with it. And he's like, okay, this guitar and this is, it's not going to win. I'm going to get this. And he nails it, but you could, the struggle is real and you can hear it.
Well, Well, honestly, I saw Neil Young play in Vancouver in probably 1994, and I'd never seen him before. I've never seen him again. It's the only time I've seen him, but I wish I could remember the song. It was probably like Hurricane or Cinnamon Girl, but it was a song with a heavy riff and a long space to lead. And I swear to God, he ended up like on the ground with the guitar, like, and it looked like he was like flat out like wrestling with this guitar. And I was like, I never forgot that, because it was like he's like trying to get a sound. Like, it sounds great. Every 4 bars, he's coming up with something good, but it's like it's not right to him, and he's going to keep on like just hitting that thing until it gives up. And I was like, I love that idea, and I think that's what I was kind of going for. And when we play it live, I'd like to even extend it further.
Well, and I think you've definitely achieved it with the new album. I got to bring up too, I mean, in your spare time, you've been writing books to where, you had a new book come out this past February. You've got a new audio book out, The Reservoir. How do you find time for all this in between, doing new TV shows and films and everything else? How do you find the time, David?
Well, I mean, I work if I have an idea, if I'm lucky enough to have an idea, I work pretty quickly in terms of writing a book or an audio book. I don't have a million ideas, but if I have an idea that I think, oh, that's a good one, I pretty much can sit down. If I have the time, if I'm not acting, I can sit down and power through it fairly quickly in terms of novel writing. But also with songs, it's like, in the band now, I don't feel the need to like perfect a song anymore. When I was first writing songs, it was just for me. So I was just sitting there going, okay, well, the song won't get finished unless I finish it, But now I get 2/3 of a song, and I'm very happy to go, hey, Colin and Pat, I think there's something here. I'm not quite getting it. Like, let's finish the song. And they'll do the same with me. They'll bring me 1/3 of a song. I love that part. So it's not just me. It's a bunch of people, and then I get to take credit. I put my name on the cover of it, and I say I did it.
Well, and I got to ask you too, David. With the cover of the album, where did you find this image? How did you come up with this?
The guy that I work with in music is a guy named Brad Davidson, and he got married this past year to Irina, and that's a picture of Irina as a young girl in Russia. And it was just, Brad sent me this picture out of the blue. I mean, he just said, like he'll send a picture. And I texted back to him immediately, that's the album cover. And he was like, what? He was like, LOL. I was like, no, I'm serious. That's the album cover. And the only defense I have is this, is like, I just really love that picture. And it made me feel something. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it means. But I was like, with the title Gestureland, it was like, it seems like there's a gesture of some kind going on, but I don't know what it is. And that made sense to me, because I felt like a lot of what was going on this year when I was looking at images, I was like, I think I'm looking at something, but I'm not sure I'm getting everything, like I'm not sure I'm getting all the signs and the signals. Mm-hmm. So this was a photograph that seemed to be saying something, but I didn't know what it was.
Well, and what it reminded me of too, David, was like, some of the great past albums, in that we've seen in the 90s and even in the 70s and everything, to where they were just these iconic images, like the guy where the cannonball's coming to hit his stomach, and different things like that. And you're looking at it going, it's just what you said. It's like, I'm not sure what's going on here, but I'm fascinated.
Yes, right. Exactly. I love that picture. I have no idea why I love it. I have no idea.
Well, I got to ask you this too. Now, with the album coming out and everything, are you going to have singles? Are there going to be videos? Obviously, as things open up more, you guys are going to be out on the road. What are the plans with the band?
First two singles are Nicer, Harder and Taste Raw. We don't have, we have lyric videos, but no like film video. I'm not against making a video, but I'd have to, again, like that photograph, I'd have to come up. If I really thought I had a great idea, I would try to shoot one. In terms of touring. We're just keeping our eye on, you know, the fluid situation with the Delta variant and all this stuff. And we want to keep safe, but we don't want to ask anybody to put themselves in a situation where they might not be safe. So we want to wait until we're pretty sure that we can play an enclosed room, you know, with 1,000, 3,000 people and not feel like we're going to get anybody sick, you know?
Right. Well, and I'll tell you what, and just being honest with you, I think this is the best album that you put out to date with Gestureland. Just the depth of the lyrics, the music. You know, I know it took 3 years in the making, but also you've got to feel like it was worth the work, even splitting it between the two studios.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, to me, 3 years seems like nothing because I didn't make any music for the first 50 years of my life. So 3 years is nothing. My first album took 55 years.
So actually, you're ahead of the curve right now.
Exactly. That was like an hour for me.
Oh my gosh! All I've got to say though is many great creatives and artists, just like George O'Keeffe, created more in their later years than they did in their earlier years, and so
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for that. I have always felt a little bit like a late bloomer. And I'm still interested, you know. When you come off of something like the X-Files, which is like a global kind of success, you know, part of you thinks that everything you do after that should be that, when in fact it's impossible to repeat something like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm as involved, even more so, in the things that I do, and I have different kind of expectations of the mark they're going to make in the world, and I become less kind of interested in that and more interested in just these discussions, like person-to-person discussions of what this stuff means and how it affects people. So I bounce between, you know, like thinking about, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have like a record that was global like that show? And it was like, well, that's not really possible. Like, but what is success for this record? I don't know. It's something I got to figure out.
Well, but I mean, you certainly achieved it through your TV shows, your movies, and your books. I mean, you know, 4 books, New York Times bestselling author. I'd say that's global. And once again, listening to your music and your past albums, David, I just assumed that you started writing as a teenager and were singing and doing music from early on in your life, just from the maturity of your music.
Well, it's lucky that I got to start when I did, because not so much the maturity of it, because I started doing music with a guy named Keaton Simons, who's terrific. I think he's living in Nashville now. Terrific singer-songwriter. I mean, just supremely talented guy. And he was kind enough to kind of record the early demos for me. And he said, I love working with you because you remind me of like when I started. Like you'll put chords together that I would never do now because I know better, you know? And I feel like it's such a gift for me to be able to, at this stage in my life, to look at something and feel like a beginner. So that's exciting to me, actually. You know, it's like I have a beginner's mindset with it, which is what you always want, you know, but it gets harder and harder to do as you get older.
And you're creative. I mean, you know, and once again, I want to bring up for our viewers where, you know, besides, you know, the incredible album out, you know, Gestureland, you've got your audio book out. You know, you've got your standard book that came out in February. You've got The Chair coming out with Netflix, I believe the end of August. And then you've got a new movie coming out the end of this year.
Yeah, The Bubble with Judd Apatow wrote and directed that. Yeah, that's a big, funny, broad comedy on Netflix. I haven't seen it. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be hysterically funny.
Well, I can't thank enough David Duchovny for coming on the Rock Interview and talking about your new album, new music with Gestureland, and we can't wait to see you live also.
I can't wait to play live. I mean, I wish we could be out there now, but, you know, we'll be out there when it's safe.
Thanks for joining us, David.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of a Bobby Bones Show.